Welcome to Adding Years, your roadmap to longevity, a playbook for living healthier and longer. I'm Josie. Along with being a certified personal trainer and longevity enthusiast, I am also a data and AI executive with 4 master's degrees, including one in AI from Johns Hopkins. In each episode, I'll share simple technology and AI-backed strategies with practical steps that you can use to build your own longevity roadmap. I'm not a doctor or medical professional, so be sure to check with your physician before trying anything we discuss on the show. If you invested in your health the way you invest your money, would you be getting a good return? Most of us plan carefully for homes, travel, and entertainment, but our greatest asset, our health, often gets whatever's left. Lately, the cost of living longer has become its own story. Some programs promise elite results at elite prices. Others claim all you need are cold plunges, fasting, and grit. The truth lives in the middle. I invest a fair amount of resources, time, and money into longevity. Obviously, I'm passionate about it given that I host this podcast, but mostly because I realize that adding years only matters if you can actually feel alive in them. But longevity isn't an all-or-nothing club. It's a spectrum of smart choices that can fit almost any lifestyle or budget if you understand what truly pays off. You don't need a concierge doctor or a $30,000 membership to add healthy years. What matters is how you allocate what you already have, your time, attention, and resources towards the interventions that deliver the highest biological return. Think of your health like a diversified portfolio. Your blue chip investments like exercise, nutrition, and sleep will deliver predictable and compounding returns. Your growth stocks like wearables, advanced labs, and targeted supplements can accelerate the progress but cost a bit more. And your speculative bets, your peptides, gene therapies, and experimental tools might reshape medicine but carry risk and uncertainty. The smartest longevity plan isn't about spending more. It's about allocating wisely across those tiers. When you look at the data, 5 behaviors consistently define long-lived, high-functioning people. They're simple but profoundly powerful. First is movement. Regular training, like cardio strength and mobility, is the ultimate compound interest for your cells. Second, nutrition. Food is information. Remember, quality and consistency trump any extreme diet. Third, sleep. It's your nightly repair cycle. Miss it and you simply age faster. Fourth is stress and recovery. You can't avoid stress, but you absolutely can train your response. These recovery rituals are free longevity tools hiding in plain sight. And fifth, prevention. Keeping your blood pressure, your glucose, and your lipids in a healthy range quietly adds years to your life without drama or hashtags. These habits are low cost, high return, and accessible to nearly everyone. They require discipline, not luxury, and this is your foundation. From this solid base, you can then choose to climb the ladder. The optimization tier adds measurement. Think of a CGM to see how food affects you, wearables for recovery data, or routine blood work that replaces guesswork with evidence. These tools don't create health, they help you manage it intelligently. Next up is the advanced tier. This is personalized medicine. We're talking concierge or telelongevity doctors, specific peptide or hormone therapy, or advanced imaging. This is great for refinement once your fundamentals are locked in, but it is optional. And finally, the experimental frontier. Things like gene editing, cellular reprogramming, or next-gen peptides. This is exciting science, but it comes with more questions than answers. Approach it with curiosity and caution. The key takeaway here is that longevity can scale. With a clear hierarchy, you can build a powerful health strategy at almost any resource level. The real variable isn't income, it's intention. Health spending shouldn't feel like consumption, it's capital allocation. Time, energy, and money are your currencies. The question is, where do they compound fastest? A consistent training schedule, quality nutrition, and solid sleep outperform nearly any exotic therapy provided you stay the course. And like any long-term investment, the earlier you start, the more powerful the compounding. A decade of steady habits will always out-earn a last-minute scramble with high fixed prices. Longevity rewards patience and consistency. It's not a lottery. It's a disciplined portfolio that grows with care. So anchor this principle as we dive deeper today. You don't have to spend more, you have to spend smarter. Because the best ROI in longevity doesn't come from a big budget. It comes from using what you already have consistently and well. If you think of a long, healthy life as an investment, what gives you the biggest return? It's not about the trendiest new gadget, it's about the moves that are proven to work. Let's take a look at the evidence-based, high-value strategies for longevity. First, your single most reliable asset is movement. Fitness is the most powerful predictor of how long and how well you'll live. And this isn't a guess. A massive study of more than 120,000 adults found that people in the top fitness tier had dramatically lower death rates. The best part is that they found no upper limit to the benefit. So the prescription here is simple. Aim for 150 minutes of moderate cardio a week, plus 2 or 3 strength sessions to protect your muscle and bone. Next is sleep. This is your body's nightly repair window. Research consistently shows that 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night is the sweet spot. Getting too much or too little is linked to a shorter lifespan. This is a topic that we'll touch upon in a later episode. But here, the real key is regularity. A steady bedtime and wake-up time beats any tracking gadgets. Your third priority is taming the silent saboteurs. These are the 3 numbers that quietly determine your long-term health. First, blood pressure. A major US trial found that keeping the top number under 120 prevented a significant number of heart attacks and strokes. Second is blood sugar. Even a mild elevation accelerates aging. The landmark diabetes prevention program was a game changer. It showed that a simple lifestyle changes cut new diabetes cases by 58%, a result that was better than the medication group. Third is cholesterol. The science here is very clear. Lowering your LDL cholesterol reduces heart disease risk in a straight line. The lower it goes, the fewer the events. After those big 3, we focus on the supporters. With nutrition, focus on quality over extremes. The Mediterranean-style pattern is the most studied approach and linked to a longer life and fewer heart problems. And now, don't shoot the messenger, but what about alcohol? The idea that a glass of red wine is good for you, well, hasn't really held up. Large global studies now show no amount of alcohol is truly beneficial for health. It's better to think of it as tax on your sleep and recovery. And don't overlook stress and connection. Research links chronic loneliness to a roughly 25% higher risk of early death. Protecting your relationships is just as important as your workout schedule. And finally, where do things like supplements and advanced medicine fit in? Think of them as the finishing touches, not the foundation. Use supplements only to fill gaps confirmed by a blood test, and consider advanced longevity medicine only after your foundation of movement, sleep, nutrition, and stress management is solid. Bottom line, longevity ROI isn't about luxury. It's about smart consistency for training, sleeping, eating real food, keeping your key numbers in range, managing stress, and connecting with people who keep you grounded. Measure what matters and let your time and money follow the real results, not the hype. So now, let's get practical. You've heard the science, the evidence for what truly moves the needle, but translating that into daily life is where most of us stumble. We live in a world where you can spend almost nothing on longevity, or you can spend like it's a full-time job. The secret is learning how to scale intelligently, deciding where to start, where to stay, and where it's worth going bigger. I like to think of longevity spending like a volume knob, not a light switch. You don't go from 0 to luxury overnight. You turn it up gradually in harmony with your lifestyle, your goals, and your bandwidth. So let's talk about the low to moderate range, where the real ROI starts. This is the layer where most of the magic happens. You're paying mostly in time and consistency, not cash. The goal here is to capture the habits that science shows buys you the most years for the least money. Movement, sleep, nutrition, stress management, and prevention. You could train entirely from home with a simple equipment, resistance bands, a mat, maybe a set of adjustable weights. or you might prefer a community gym or a group class that keeps you accountable. Either way, the important thing isn't the gear. It's that you're moving 5 to 6 days a week, some days slow and steady, and some days heavy and strong. For cardio, it's those moderate zone 2 sessions that strengthens your mitochondria and keeps glucose stable. Strength training, meanwhile, is your muscle insurance policy. It protects metabolism, bone, posture, and mobility for decades. Your sleep setup is another place where small tweaks yield big returns. Try to set up a dark, cool room. Add blackout curtains, a fan, or if you can, a temperature-controlled mattress or pad so that your body stays in the right thermal window overnight. That alone can raise sleep efficiency, recovery, and HRV metrics more than any supplement ever could. Nutrition in this range is about quality and pattern, not perfection. Whole foods, lean protein, vegetables, healthy fats, and fewer ultra-processed options. You don't need a nutrition app or macro spreadsheet, just a rhythm of eating that keeps energy stable and blood sugar gentle. Stress regulation is similar. The most powerful interventions cost nothing. Taking walks outdoors, breathing slowly, and staying connected to people who make you laugh. That's free neurochemistry. And finally, don't forget prevention. Know your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, and get your basic lab markers done once or twice a year. Those numbers tell you whether your foundation is working. At this level, you're spending modestly but earning massive biological dividends. This is where the longevity graph bends upward. Once you've been consistent for a while, you can then layer in measurement and feedback. Think of this as upgrading from intuition to insight. Here, you might start tracking more intentionally, using a wearable that measures recovery, sleep, or daily strain. The data aren't mandatory, they're just mirrors. They show you how well your habits are working in real time. You might explore more structured programming. A personal trainer, even virtually, can tighten and form progression. Sometimes a single consult or short program is enough to set direction for months. Some people in this range experiment with short-term data experiments. A continuous glucose monitor for a few weeks, for instance, to see how their meals affect blood sugar. It's a small investment that can teach you volumes about your metabolism. Your nutrition can also evolve from broad strokes to precision. Maybe you track protein for a month to calibrate your portions, or you work with a dietitian once to confirm your assumptions. Sleep refinement might involve some environmental upgrades. Better bedding, supportive pillows, maybe that temperature-controlled surface we mentioned earlier, so you stay cooler through the night. For most people, optimizing temperature solves half of their sleep issues. And this is the phase where you start treating recovery like a discipline, not an afterthought. You may schedule mobility sessions, experiment with heat or cold exposure, or try a guided breathwork or yoga. Most of these are low cost but high yield if practiced consistently. Then the real advantage of this range is feedback. You're learning how your specific body responds. Instead of guessing, you're observing. And observation changes everything. It turns good habits into a data-driven routine. And now we move to the part of the spectrum that demands more money and attention, but only if your foundation is already solid. At this level, you might choose to work with a longevity-focused physician or health optimization clinic that offers deeper testing and personalized protocols. This could include advanced blood panels, imaging, hormone analysis, or peptide guidance. You might invest in a comprehensive home setup, resistant machines, smart weight systems, and cardio equipment that integrates with your metrics. It's convenient and allows flexibility, but the ROI still depends on consistency. A pristine gym that gathers dust is a sunk cost. A basic setup used daily is an asset. And nutrition becomes fully customized. Some people hire a nutritionist or a chef to align food with biomarkers. Others invest in periodic microbiome or genetic testing to fine-tune diet and supplement choices. These tools can be useful, but they should serve clarity, not complexity. And recovery can read new sophistication. Personalized physical therapy, red light or infrared devices, contrast therapy, or professional massage cycles. All can add value when paired with data showing improved recovery, mobility, or sleep. The higher investment tier also includes regular lab tracking, body composition assessments, and health coaching to integrate all of the data. It's a luxury of precision, but again, its success depends on the fundamentals you built earlier. Even at this level, the principles remain identical: measure, intervene, and evaluate. If an expensive therapy isn't improving a metric or subjective quality of life, the ROI isn't there, no matter how advanced it sounds. The art of investing is knowing when to scale and when to maintain. You can think of your life as a set of seasons. Sometimes you're in a build phase, adding training volume, experimenting with technology, tightening nutrition. On other times, you're in maintenance, holding gains, protecting recovery, and focusing on family or work. Your budget should flex with those seasons. When life gets busy, fall back on your foundation: home workouts, walks, simple meals, and strict sleep hygiene. When you have more bandwidth, invest in measurement or refinement. What matters is continuity. You never let the line go to zero, you just modulate intensity. I like to think of the phrase minimum effective discipline. You don't need perfection, just enough consistency to keep the biological momentum moving forward. A skipped workout or an indulgent meal doesn't reset the system. Long gaps do. Every year, audit your return. Are you stronger, sleeping better? Are your biomarkers trending in the right direction? If the answer is yes, your current allocation is working. If not, adjust the dial, sometimes upward, sometimes downward. And remember, ROI changes with age and context. When you're younger, exercise gives the biggest return. Later, sleep and recovery might become your largest lever. Later still, prevention and medical monitoring dominates. The allocation evolves, but the framework will endure. I often tell people, think of yourself as both the portfolio manager and the asset. The asset, your body, is shaped to compounding habits. The manager, you, decides how to allocate limited capital across many choices. The trick is balancing risk, reward, and time horizon. Here's how that mindset translates to longevity. Risk management means prioritizing safety and sustainability. Overtraining, undersleeping, or experimenting recklessly with unproven therapies is a biological equivalent of a volatile stock. Reward means choosing behaviors with strong evidence for lifespan or health span improvement. Exercise, nutrition, and sleep. These are the index funds of longevity. And time horizon is your patience. True longevity ROI doesn't appear in a week. It accrues through years of consistent inputs. That's why I encourage people to chase steady returns, not quick wins. The flashiest interventions rarely outperform fundamentals over the long run. And if you ever feel tempted to buy the latest gadget or supplement, ask one question: is this improving my capacity to execute the basics? If yes, it's probably a good investment. If no, it's likely a distraction. So let's walk through what this might look like in real life. You start small: resistant bands, bodyweight circuits, and outdoor walks. You sleep in a darker, cooler room, cut back on late night scrolling, cook more real food, and check your blood pressure. You should feel better almost immediately: more energy, steadier mood, and stronger mornings. That's the compounding effect beginning. A year later, you can add structure: a wearable to show your recovery patterns. You realize you pushed too hard midweek, so you build in an active recovery. You experiment with a short CGM trial, discover certain meals spike glucose, and adjust. You upgrade your bed setup, maybe temperature controls, better pillow, consistent bedtime, and your deep sleep scores jump. Your weekends include a longer resistant or zone 2 session that you genuinely enjoy. By the end of the third or fourth year, you might choose to invest further. Maybe you partner with a longevity physician for deeper labs or get an advanced body composition scan. You've earned that stage because you have a reliable foundation. You are now allocating not for survival, but for optimization, extending the curve of vitality. And you still know that if all of the fancy tools disappear tomorrow, your real assets remain: movement, food quality, restorative sleep, stress resilience, and strong relationships. People often ask me, what's the most important thing I can buy for longevity? My answer is time on task. The willingness to repeat simple, high ROI actions long enough for them to pay off. You can buy support systems, coaches, devices, and recovery tech, but you can't outsource consistency. That's why I view these ranges not as hierarchies of wealth, but of engagement. The more engaged you are, the higher your return. And I've seen both extremes. I know people who spend large amounts of money on advanced protocols but ignore basic exercise, and people who do bodyweight training in a park and outperform them in every metric. The difference isn't money, it's commitment. So, wherever you sit on the spectrum, remember your attention is the most precious resource. Direct it towards actions that truly extend both life and vitality. Longevity doesn't reward intensity, it rewards consistency. You don't need every gadget or every therapy. You need alignment between your goals, your means, and your habits. Whether you're training in a private gym or with resistance bands in your living room, sleeping in a luxury smart bed or under a ceiling fan, using peptide protocols, or simply focusing on your nutrition, the biology that responds is the same. Your mitochondria don't care how much you spend. They care that you show up. And that's really the story of ROI in longevity. The most powerful returns come not from extravagance, but from mastery in the fundamentals. When you master those, you can scale any layer above them confidently, knowing that every new dollar and every new minute is compounding, not compensating. In the next segment, I'll share how this looks in my own life, the exact way I've allocated time, money, and focus, and what I've learned the hard way, and what surprised me most along the way. When people picture someone who's into longevity, they tend to imagine one or two archetypes. Either a minimalist monk living on green juice and discipline, or a billionaire in a cryo chamber surrounded by machines that go ping. I wish I could say that my version is practical, but let's be real, it's not. Most people don't track their HRV with 2 wearables, microdose cold exposure, and then record a podcast about it. So no, my version of longevity isn't minimalist, it's enthusiastic, maybe a little bit extra. But for me, it's joyful. It's like a lifelong science experiment where the subject and the scientist are the same person. I also know that I'm privileged. I have access to incredible physicians, technology, and time to learn, and a lot of people don't. So I try to use that access not just for myself, but to share what I learn with others. And one of the best side effects of hosting this podcast is meeting the people behind the research, physicians, scientists, and innovators who live and breathe this stuff. Every conversation adds a layer to how I understand my own health. First, I want to share my 3-doctor model. I think of my care network as a small, well-run company. 3 experts, clear roles, and no meetings that could have been emails. My primary care physician is part of the foundation. He handles the basic, my annual exams, prescriptions, colds, vaccines, and the routine labs that my insurance covers. It's not glamorous, but it is the backbone. And using insurance for that layer means I can reserve out-of-pocket spending for advanced testing later. Then there's my longevity physician who goes deep, like advanced lipid testing, hormone tracking, metabolic panels, inflammation markers, and advanced imaging. This is the data-heavy layer, the one that shows if all of my hard work is paying off beneath the surface. And finally, I work with the physician who specializes in advanced protocols, including peptides. She helps manage regenerative cycles, short, precisely dosed programs for recovery and tissue repair. Every protocol is highly structured, including pre- and post-cycle labs, full documentation, and clear start and stop points. And these 3 physicians don't operate in silos. They occasionally coordinate, but I act as the bridge, comparing labs, spotting overlap, and keeping everyone aligned. It sounds intense, but it actually allows me to hit my goals. I know who handles what, when, and why. And yes, I am aware how lucky I am. Most people struggle to find even one good doctor who listens, let alone 3 who collaborate. I hope we eventually see a healthcare model where this kind of proactive, team-based approach is available to more people. Every quarter, I do a full lab panel, and once a year or so, I add advanced imaging, a full-body MRI, and update markers like ApoB and the Gallery multi-cancer screen. It's not anxiety, it's prevention. The earlier you catch a trend or an illness, the easier it is to change the outcome. And that's a lot of information and a lot of metrics. And because I work in data and AI, measurement feels like second nature. but I've also learned to not let the numbers run the show. As discussed in a previous episode, I wear both Aura and Whoop and throw in 8 sleep just to keep it interesting. They sometimes disagree, which is half the fun. It's like watching brilliant but slightly competitive scientists argue over who's right about your sleep, recovery, and training. I pull their metrics into a dashboard that tracks HRV, resting heart rate, sleep consistency, and training load. On Sundays, I look for patterns the way I'd look at a quarterly business report. Every 6 to 8 months, I wear a continuous glucose monitor for a couple of weeks. It's humbling and occasionally hilarious. Nothing will ruin your sense of nutritional superiority faster than realizing your healthy smoothie spikes glucose worse than a donut. The trick is to keep curiosity ahead of perfectionism. If my HRV drops, I don't panic. I just ask, what is my body telling me? Maybe it's stress, maybe dehydration, maybe the universe reminding me that recovery matters just as much as effort. Data are a compass, not a commandment. For me, movement is my anchor habit, the one variable that everything else depends on. My home gym looks like the control room of a small spaceship. I've got a tonal and free weights for strength, a rower for endurance, a walking pad for low-intensity movement during calls, and a Carol AI bike for short, brutal re-hit intervals and zone 2 cardio. I'm also a fan of my rucksack and walks through my neighborhood, although you'll probably never see a photo of me doing rucking because I tend to look like a kid on my way to school. I strength train 3 to 4 days a week, add 2 longer cardio sessions, and dedicate 1 day to recovery or mobility. I think of exercise as a biological compounding interest. It pays off more the longer you invest. And unlike some interventions, it works across most budgets. You can do it in a high-end gym or a backpack full of books. The ROI is just the same. And oddly, for a long time, I treated recovery like a luxury. Now I treat it as an essential. Early evenings often start with my infrared sauna. I call it my quiet thinking booth. After that, I'll use my LED red light panel or a red light mask for skin and circadian rhythm support. It's the opposite of chaos. It's my transition ritual from intensity to rest. Sleep is the single most powerful tool that I have. I use an 8 sleep temperature control bed that adjusts throughout the night. I add blackout shutters and I try no screens nearby, which I often fail, and it's the closest thing to sleep perfection that I've ever managed. The next morning, I can see the difference in my data, but more importantly, I feel it. My brain is sharper, my mood is steadier, my workouts are better. Sleep ROI is completely unmatched. If longevity had a stock market, I put a chunk of my portfolio there. I sometimes run peptide cycles under medical supervision, short, targeted, and carefully measured. Every phase has labs before and after, because as you know, I like to safely experiment. I also rotate IV nutrient therapy, some NAD and vitamin shots, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and cryo sessions weekly or more when I have time. Massage is routine, not indulgent. My myodetox sessions help with fascial release and mobility so that I can keep pace towards better posture and alignment. And I want to emphasize that not everything has to be cutting edge. Some of the best longevity strategies are ancient: sleep, movement, and nutrition, and some are just common sense. I also test my oral microbiome twice a year and see my dentist every 2 to 3 months. It's not about cosmetic upkeep, it's actually cardiovascular prevention. The mouth is the front line of systemic inflammation. I plan to do an episode on this soon and bring my dentist along to give deeper explanations than I can. Longevity isn't all shiny tech and exotic peptides. Sometimes it's floss, hydration, and saying no to chronic stress. Your skin tells the story of your internal health faster than most biomarkers. And as I've said on other episodes, I'm a tad obsessed with my skin health. I use tretinoids, antioxidants, and barrier repair formulas and stack that with red light therapy and the occasional PRP or fractional laser treatments. It's really not about chasing youth, it's about supporting tissue regeneration. Healthy skins reflects healthy healing, and it's a daily reminder that repair is an inside-out process. And let's be honest, feeling confident when you look in the mirror is its own anti-aging compound. I also try to treat education as medicine. I attend longevity and metabolic health conferences, read papers, and talk with experts whenever possible. It's one of the biggest hidden perks of this podcast. I get to have direct long-form conversations with people who spend their entire lives studying aging from every angle: molecular biology, exercise science, neuroprotection, and hormone optimization. Sometimes those discussions change how I train. Sometimes they change how I think. Either way, they keep me learning. And the deeper I go, the more I realize how provisional the science still is. The smartest people in this field are comfortable saying, "We don't know yet." That humility is refreshing and probably the most important trait for anyone serious about longevity. And to be realistic, between work, travel, and life, fitting everything in requires structure and discipline. I batch tasks as much as I am able to. Labs, imaging, and dentist visits all in a couple weeks each quarter. Recovery sessions stacked on Sundays when I try to fit in recording this podcast, and supplements are prepped every 2 weeks. The system might look a bit obsessive, and maybe it is, but it is actually the only way that I can fit everything in. I try to make health is baked into my life, not bolted on top. A friend calls it the gamification of health, and it works for me. And longevity really only works if it's sustainable, and sustainability is built on systems, not just motivation. The biggest surprise for me throughout this experience was how normal it all felt. At first, I thought longevity would be this giant, impossible, and complicated pursuit. Now it often feels like second nature. My protocols are a core part of my week, like grocery shopping. I've also learned that recovery is the true driver of progress. When sleep, stress, or rest slip, nothing else works right. Recovery isn't a pause, it's progress in disguise. I'm not sharing all of this to prescribe a lifestyle. I'm sharing it to demystify what doing the work looks like up close. Yes, I have some resources, and yes, I experiment with advanced medicine. But the biology doesn't care whether your strength training happens with a personal trainer at a fancy gym or with resistant bands in your backyard. The body responds to stimulus, recovery, and consistency. And this is my version of the same principle anyone can follow. Start with what you can control, learn what works for you, and scale from there as you are able to. And feel free to shoot me a note to let me know how you're approaching your journey. And not to become philosophical, the more I quantify, the more I value what can't be measured. Data captures physiology, not meaning. Metrics don't record laughter or connection or purpose, but those things change every biomarker that matters. And for me, the goal of longevity isn't to outlive people. It's to outfeel my former self. Each morning, I try to ask, do I feel clear, capable, and kind? If the data align, great. If not, I still lead with the feeling. So if I had to summarize my approach, start broad, go deep, and stay curious. Build a foundation first of movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress management. Then layer in the precision tools when you're ready and able to. Use science for insight, technology for feedback, and humor and friends and family for sanity. Longevity isn't about defying time. It's about building a life that's worth living longer. I see some longevity influencers and they sometimes seem to miss that point. Random side comment, but because you go out and have a drink with your friends or toast your parents on their anniversary doesn't mean you can't be committed to health and longevity. Just be mindful of your choices and deliberate in understanding the risk versus social rewards or just doing what you enjoy. For me, I love Korean cold noodles and sour candy, and to be honest, life would not truly be worth living without them. Probably not the physically healthy choice, but it's one that makes me happy regardless. All right, now, my favorite section. Let's talk about the myths that drain both wallets and optimism. Myth 1. Your genes determine your destiny. I hear this one all the time. It's all in the genes. It's really not. Genetics set the blueprint, but you are the architect. Studies show that only 20 to 25% of lifespan is dictated by genes. The rest, behavior, environment, and luck. If your parents live to be 95, congratulations, you've got great templates. But if they didn't, that doesn't doom you. Lifestyle choices, exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress management, community are the big levers. You can't pick your DNA, but you can pick your daily inputs. And the ROI on behavior beats the inheritance on genes every time. Myth 2. Aging equals inevitable decline. I get why people believe this one. The images we see of old age usually involves decline, fatigue, frailty, brain fog. But that's not biology, that's conditioning. Aging happens, but decline is optional. You can absolutely build muscle in your 60s, 70s, even your 80s. Your brain can still form new connections, and your metabolism can stay sharp. The key is what you do daily. Move, sleep, connect, and eat intentionally. It's not about stopping the clock. It's about teaching the clock to tick in your favor. And I'm not saying time doesn't change us. It does. But the goal isn't to stay 30 forever. It's to be the kind of 75-year-old who still hikes, still laughs, and still remembers why they started caring in the first place. Myth 3. It's too late to start. I can't tell you how often someone says, well, I didn't start in my 20s, so what's the point now? That's like saying you didn't start saving for retirement early enough, so you might as well spend it all on tequila. Change works at any age. A Harvard study found that even people who began exercising in their 50s had similar reductions in mortality risk as lifelong exercisers. Your body is remarkably forgiving. It's just waiting for new instructions. Start wherever you are, not what Instagram says you should be. It's never too late to invest in your future self. The dividends just start paying sooner than you think. Myth 4. Exercise needs to be extreme to be effective. You do not have to train like a Navy SEAL to age well. Longevity exercise is about consistency, not intensity. A Finnish twin study found that moderate exercise produced the biggest longevity gains, not ultramarathons or CrossFit death matches. And you don't need fancy gear, a gym, resistance band, or even a heavy backpack. The best workout is one you'll repeat for the next 20 years, and bonus points if you actually enjoy it. Myth number 5. Red wine is a longevity hack. I know, I wanted this one to be true too. Red wine has resveratrol, which activates some of the same cellular pathways as calorie restriction, but you'd need hundreds of glasses a day to reach those study levels, and human evidence for resveratrol as a longevity intervention is very weak. The real takeaway is if you enjoy wine, enjoy it socially, but don't call it medicine. Moderation is fine, dependence is not. And if you want the same vascular and cognitive benefits, skip the bottle and eat grapes, blueberries, or exercise. All far cheaper and less likely to text your ex. And lastly, myth number 6. Longevity means living forever. This one's my favorite because it's the most human. True longevity isn't about outliving everyone. It's about outfeeling your former self. Health span, not lifespan. It's about preserving clarity, strength, purpose, and connection for as long as possible. You can't buy forever. The point isn't immortality, it's vitality. And vitality is earned, not purchased. All right, so we covered a lot today, from exercise to labs to food and supplements and how to decide what's worth your investment. Before we close, I want to strip it back to the real questions underneath all of this. How do you build a long, healthy lifestyle without wasting time, energy, or money on the wrong things? First, what does the evidence say works? Well, the evidence says longevity ROI lives in the basics. Strength training, cardio, good sleep, stress regulation, real food, and connections. Those are the compounding assets. They're reliable, relatively low cost, and scientifically undeniable. You can layer in the tech, imaging, and supplements as your resources allow, but the foundation doesn't change. If you master the simple things, you've already captured 80% of the return. And second, how do I do it safely? Well, by measuring before you move and consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. That might mean labs, a wearable, or just a realistic check in with your recovery and mood. Then adjust slowly and with precision. Whether you're working with 3 physicians like I do, or still searching for the right one that aligns to your longevity goals, the point is the same. Have a guide you trust and data you can interpret. This combination saves more money and more health than supplements ever could. And lastly, how can AI personalize all of this for me? AI can hopefully provide us with an equalizer. As the models evolve and the technology becomes more and more pervasive, it can hopefully help even out the playing field by giving us all access to deep research, lab analysis, and strategic health planning. I use AI as my personal assistant. It organizes data, summarizes labs, and helps me spot trends before they become a problem. You don't need expensive software. Free tools can translate numbers into next steps. That's the real democratization of longevity, using intelligence, not excess, to make better choices. For a long time, I thought longevity was about optimizing every variable, but now I see it as participating in your own care, consistently, intelligently, and with purpose. That means knowing when to spend, knowing when to simplify, and when to rest. It means understanding that the small, unglamorous routines, like your sleep, cardio, strength training, hydration, and relationships, are where the real compounding happens. Longevity shouldn't be an expense, it's an investment. And like any good investment, the return comes from patience, not panic. So build the foundation you can maintain. Refine it as you grow and add resources. Adjust and measure your progress like your future depends on it, because it does. Longevity isn't a finish line, it's a practice. And every time you choose to invest in the right thing, whether it's with your time, money, or attention, you're already adding years to your life. Thank you for spending your time with me today on Adding Years, your roadmap to longevity. If you found this episode helpful, please follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and consider leaving a review. Before we wrap up, a quick but important reminder. Adding Years is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your health regimen, supplements, or exercise routine. What you hear on this show reflects personal opinions, experiences, and not medical advice. I'm Josie, and this is Adding Years. Until next time, here's to living better, longer.